Good start. Literally asking it as I'm doing it. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to welcome to today's review. Not welcome back, obviously, unless you clicked off in the first 1 second and then came back. I, of course, as always, am your host, Purple Midnight 8, joined by Amelia, the Obsidian Nook Pet ASMR. My wife, she wants to make me say this time for some reason, even though it's been a few since we didn't really get married. We just decided to be husband and wife because we can't afford to. Anyway, this week we are looking at Ghosts of War. It's not a Netflix film. It was released on Direct TV, I think it was called.
Oh.
It's on Netflix, but it's not a Netflix film. It was released on Direct TV, an American whatever it is. I think it's a cable thing. I think it's a TV movie. Possibly. I don't know. But we saw it on Netflix, so it's Netflix. If that makes any sense. Anyway. Spoilers. Major spoilers. We cannot talk about this film without spoiling it in any way, shape, or form. So, watch it before. If you like Ghosts and World War II, watch the first two parts of this film.
Big booms and blood and guts.
There's not a lot of blood and guts, realistically. There's a surprising lack of it.
This will be your film with a hint of a lot of looping in it, a bit like Triangle. That's your.
Yeah, so it's very much like Triangle in that sense of it's a loop. As I say, we can't not talk about spoilers without while we're reviewing this film. So where to begin with it, really? It is a really good. Well, I enjoyed, for the most part, I did enjoy the suspense in the original, concept of a World War II ghost film. I was like, that could be good. Similarly along the veins of films like Overlord, which I want to watch. It's not a ghost film, but it's World War II horror, as opposed to the same old war films. So I was kind of hoping it'd be like that. It was for the most part, except as mentioned, basically Act 3 goes way off the fucking rails. It kind of ruins the allure of the first parts of the film. Like everything they built up. Similar to that of a classic horror story, funnily enough, where the first two acts of the film are really good, and then the third one is just like, why would you fucking do that? So we'll get into it and we'll talk about it in detail throughout. As we go along, we'll be talking to each other and to you, of course, about everything that we are seeing at the time. That's a review, isn't it? We're just going to talk about the film. That's the whole point. I don't need to explain that. So this film was written and directed by Eric Bress. He has done wonderful things, such as he wrote Final Destination 2, and he was the director and writer of The Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher, I believe is his name. Yeah. And The Final Destination as well, the fourth one? The one that was released during the period of 3D movies, so it's just all of the effects were designed to be watched in 3D, which now that fad has sort of died, we're sort of just stuck with these films of. Amelia is colouring again, so half of the bed is covered in shit. Yeah, they literally heard alternating because you were like, I'm going to move as far away from the mic while talking at the same time. She gets pain, she has to move a lot. She's fidgety, for a lack of better words. As mentioned, this film is available on Netflix for the two people that still use it other than us. After all that shit with password sharing and
Actually, they wrote Netflix reckon that they're doing better than ever after doing that.
Really?
Yeah, because some
people buy subscriptions.
appears on TikTok and they were being in the logo with Prime, Disney, some other company, I can't remember if that was YouTube Films or something, but they were like, "Oh, we should do the whole password thing."
Disney's doing it. Disney's trying to do the password
They're
shit.
not.
They are, yeah. Mad, isn't it? Anyway,
Disney. I
we
will,
will say naughty things about you on
I
the
will
internet.
take my Stitch out of the cupboard and burn it, which has my mother's voice, which will be my fault.
Yeah, don't do that, otherwise we might end up with a film like this where we're just going to have demons haunting us by burning a Stitch doll. Anyway, they're not even demons, actually. They're
Just
not
because
even...
it worked for one person.
Yeah. Anyway, so in France in 1944, of course, because it's World War Two, so obviously it's going to be during World War Two time. Allied soldiers are sleeping in the woods when one of them suddenly awakes, believing someone is watching him from the trees. The figure lights a cigarette as he grabs his gun, but the figure does it first. However, the soldier closes his eyes and the figure suddenly vanishes. Excuse me. The next morning, the squad speak to one another and prepare to head out. The soldier from last night, which is also their squad leader, Chris, he is played by Brenton Thwaites. I've not heard of this gentleman, but he has a very familiar face. He was on Home and Away. He's Australian, wow. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. And he was Nightwing, or Robin, well, it's Dick Grayson, Robin, Nightwing in Titans. So he's been in a good few little bits and bobs. He is a jeep coming and orders his team to prepare to ambush them. They blow it up with a mine, killing 2 of the soldiers on board. I kept having to change that as more of them kept jumping back to life. Not as zombies. Tapper, who is played by Kyle Gallner, who I thought was in Triangle, but he is not. He's been in quite a few bits recently. He has been in Smile. He has been in Scream 5.
You say you saw that?
Smile was absolute garbage, and I will not say otherwise because apparently people love that film. Is absolute shy. Anyway, so he was in Smile. He was in Scream 5. He was also in Jennifer's Body, which is a film you really enjoy, and we will eventually cover because we have films, and we will cover them because we own them. Well, we don't own the rights to them. However, obviously, we do own them on DVD, so why wouldn't we cover them? Anyway, enough about him. We'll get back in it. So yeah, Taffer steals their insignias as well as Kirk, who is played by Theo Rossi, Sons of Anarchy fame, last seen on the channel in Army of the Dead, as a piece of shit character. He executes another soldier. Kirk finds another soldier. Wait, hang on. I've complete. Oh no, not the last soldier. Kirk finds another soldier, who is played by Billy Zane, who is also an executive producer for this film. And Butchie, who is played by Alan Ritchson of CW fame for being in... I can't remember. I had it. He was Aquaman in Smallville, possibly. I think that's the one. Yeah, it looks like it. But he's also been in films like The Hunger Games, Catching Fire. He played one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the weird Michael Bay movies. And he was in Fast X recently. Another of them, Fast and Furious. Yeah. God, there's too many of them. So yeah, Butchie recognises he's a major and decides he's going to fight him. Eugene, who is played by Skylar Astin, I believe. I did have a heart attack while writing the script. The script, not the script. My review. Our review. What's going on? I'm just having a day of it, I think. This is done in one take, if as you all possibly are familiar with.
Obviously, you edit. I can't edit for jack shit.
So Skylar Astin, he is known for Pitch Perfect 2, oh god, and Pitch Perfect 1, Glee, Trolls, The Beat Goes On, Wreck-It Ralph. Can you not be doing that while we're trying to record? Just I can't do pens. I bet that sounds really good as you just down the fucking mic. Anyway, so I'm just gonna stop until you're done, and then we can you can sit there and be awkward while I fucking sit there and stare at you, just as you're undoing the Velcro that keeps them done. You got the ones you want. You got your purples. Right. Anyway, so now that she's done for now, see Eugene, played by Skylar Astin, speaks German to him because he is a big book nerd and he knows words. Butchie approaches yet another soldier and decides to bash his head in with a crowbar as the Major watches on. Butchie fights the Major before Chris shoots him in the head, and they move on once more, leaving the wreck behind. Eventually, they watch as some Jewish prisoners, we'll call them, from certain camps. I won't go into detail of that. That's horrible enough. Emerge from some trees. And Tappet approaches them, giving them, I think it was the Major's coat, I think he gave them, before leaving. On the road, Chris tells them that they have orders to defend a Nazi-occupied mansion. They make it there, finding another soldier, who they relieve alongside the rest of his squad, who hurry out of the house. Chris and the others are confused as why the other squad would want to leave so quickly, however, they do not question it anymore. The squad settle in and explore the house, and in the basement, Tappet finds an image of the family that presumably once lived there. The squad are all unnerved when they experience unexplained sounds around the house. Chris and the others hear some footsteps and a strange dragging sound coming from somewhere in the house, and they spread out to search for it. Before they can open a door, Kirk and Chris are surprised when it suddenly swings open. Drawing some weird, a room divider curtain. I don't know why would a house have that? It wasn't like in a bedroom. I don't know. Anyway, she's colouring. She's not even listening.
What was it again?
I like how you started to defend yourself and then thought, "What you on about?" Anyway, so they draw that massive, weird curtain. And in front of a window, they briefly see a silhouette hanging from the window before it disappears. And that night, Chris hears more sounds that he believes is Morse code that Eugene deciphers to read "I have no legs," until something drops from the chimney into the fireplace, which is a dead squirrel. Right, so this is where this little as I said, we've already spoiled it, so I'm not even going to bother being like spoiler alert. This is their unconscious brains trying to tell them that what they're experiencing is not real. For example, the "I have no legs" is, I think, well, most of them don't have legs after the explosion that knocked them all into comas. So it's difficult to say who's actually sending the message.
Basically where later on the film you'll click and then it will make sense.
It'll make sense when we get there. The dead squirrel, I think, is in relation to Tappet giving the squirrel doll to a kid later on. I believe. Eugene in the basement reads through a journal he found earlier once more until the candle he sat next to goes out. And when he relights it, he notices that the family have disappeared from the picture. Tappet takes a vantage point in the attic and does not notice when a figure enters the room behind him, and is surprised when the ghost of a boy jumps up in front of him. The next day, the squad all refuse to speak about what happened the night before. For whatever reason, I feel like they probably should have addressed that. Tappet tells Chris, Kirk, and Eugene about an incoming group of 50-plus Nazis heading their way, but Chris refuses to leave under threat of court-martial. Excuse me. Tappet and Eugene find an occult symbol hidden under a rug in the attic, but other than share their superstitions about what it could mean, they don't address it any further. Forgive me, I've lost it. They move a cabinet that suddenly slams closed on Eugene's fingers, which breaks them quite badly. It's all mangled and disgusting. Later, they listen on the old squad's radio and hear a ghostly German voice. They share that they think the house is haunted and hear more Morse code. Eugene once again begins deciphering it until suddenly he is possessed into forcing and is forced to write "If you leave, you die," which the radio also repeats to them. The squad then prepares to ambush the Nazis that night as the Nazis arrive outside. Tappet spots them and communicates it through Morse code to the others who are waiting in the building's lobby. But the Nazis attempt to open the doors and fail, finding them locked and decide to move on. However, some mystery gunshots that they initially believe is from Tappet, but in reality is unknown because it's never really explained what happened there. That causes the Nazis to decide to raid the house. A Nazi throws a grenade through a window that Butchie jumps onto, and of course it blows him up. They shoot and kill a large number of Nazis and have to retreat further into the house. Chris enters the basement and ambushes two of them who comes down the stairs. And a Nazi finds what's left of Butchie and Chris ambushes him, stabbing him in the neck, and then shoots two more that follow him. It's a nice practical bit of blood that just comes spurting out of his neck. It's disgusting. Thanks for that. Kirk watches as a Nazi is mysteriously drowned in a bathtub. Eugene is trapped by another Nazi but is surprised by a ghost as he watches a Nazi burn alive in the chair suddenly. Tappet in the attic finds another one suddenly hanging from the ceiling, chained up. The squad regroup the next morning and gather around a barely alive Butchie, and outside they find Tappet next to a truck full of stripped down dead Nazis. I don't know why he does that, that's never really explained. Eugene tells the others that the mysterious deaths they witnessed shared the fates of the family that lived there, the Hellwigs. Hellwigs? I can't remember. Eugene sits with Butchie and mistakes Tappet for a Nazi but doesn't shoot him. Thought that was important. He didn't just no-scope him with a pistol. Tappet tells him about the trauma he had been through, including how he slaughtered several Hitler Youth children. That sounded fucked. But as we find out later on, that hadn't actually happened. Eugene sits with Butchie. Oh, I've already done that. Chris returns to the bathroom where he is almost drowned by Nazis, which aren't actually real, seeing a flash of some unknown people. It's revealed as a dream when Eugene suddenly wakes him up that morning, and the two of them go into the basement to search for more information on the Hellwigs, until Chris finds a Nazi journal that has nothing written in it. Butchie awakens suddenly, repeating "this isn't real and it was us," and tells Chris to remember before finally succumbing to his wounds and dying. This is explained later on as Butchie in the real world waking up, suddenly going back into the simulation and trying to tell them all that this isn't real and that they need to remember that it isn't. And as I will mention later on, he does actually die in the real world there as well. So Kirk and the team tell Chris that they can't stay in the house, and Chris comes up with a plan to bury the bodies in order to set them free. Chris reluctantly orders them to gear up and leave, but they bury Butchie before they go. They all head out, seeing the same Jewish prisoners once more, and Eugene makes a theory that they are in a version of hell where they must repeat a loop. Get it? See, this theory I would have preferred over what actually happened with the whole simulation thing. Because at least it would have been a bit more... At least it would have been real as opposed to the whole simulation side of things. Because simulation is just as bad as being it was all a dream. The ultimate cop-out. But we'll talk about more about that when we get to it. So later that evening, they pass an abandoned medic truck that they had passed several times. Well, they had passed the first time they were going to the mansion. Yeah. So they get to it several times, and then eventually they decide that they're going to turn around. They suddenly that night they stop. God, I'm having a day again. Sorry, guys. That night, they stop in the woods for the night, with Tappet suddenly being grabbed before seeing himself hanging suddenly. Don't know why I said suddenly twice. In the attic before the rope snaps and he wakes up in the woods again, seeing a strange word marked on the ground. They once more pass the medic truck the next morning, but again they turn around. However, when they turn around, they are in reality back at the Jeep that they blew up. They eventually return to the house to bury the dead Hellwigs, and they plan to communicate with the ghosts to locate their bodies in order to bury them. Tappet keeps repeating the word that he saw on the ground, which is Vetrulek, which Eugene recognizes from the diary. They all wait for the ghosts to move through the flower that Chris left on the ground so they can follow them. However, the footsteps approach Chris and it grabs him, dragging him to the building that Tappet saw a few nights prior. The others follow them and see flashes of somewhere where they aren't, so they see a different place. They find Chris, who has found the Hellwig's corpses, and they promptly bury them. And before they do that, Eugene finds the missing journal page on one of the bodies, as Tappet finds the bathtub overflowing. He realizes he leaves the bathroom and sees the ghost of a woman that grabs him. And outside, Eugene realizes that the Hellwigs were Afghani and hid Jews in their house, which caused them to be killed by the Nazis. It's all slowly unfolding, the whole mystery regarding the Hellwigs and the reality that they will soon wake up to. So, of course, they're slowly remembering what's happened, like the fact that they're Afghani, and they keep seeing Afghanistan. I break open the chest in the house that contains cigars, and Eugene reads that as a result, it gave them power to resurrect the family. Tappet sits upstairs within the occult symbol as the others are attacked by the ghosts, who they fight, causing them to weirdly glitch. Now, this is where the movie goes fucking weird when it comes to the simulation. They force Chris to remember, and he suddenly awakes in a futuristic hospital where the Major from earlier, who is now a doctor, is waiting for him, I should say. Chris remembers that they are Afghanistan veterans being treated for PTSD using a simulation. So, in a flashback that's in reality, not in World War II, the World War II part is pretty much over now. What are you doing? Are you trying to fucking close that again without making noise? Anyway, we'll get back to it. So, in the flashback, we see the Hellwigs as the real people they were ordered to evacuate. Chris's team are all ordered by an American operative who is the same soldier they dismissed earlier. They are ordered by him in order to hide from incoming ISIS forces. The family's father shows the ISIS soldiers in and welcomes them. The two speak to one another. Well, the father and the leader of the ISIS soldiers talk to one another until the family is grabbed and killed in the way they were in the house in the simulation. And, of course, as he does this, as this happens, the ISIS leader lights a cigar, which means he is the guy that Chris woke up in the night and saw. At least I think so. I think that's how that works. Which he then uses to light the father on fire and brutally burn him alive. The squad all decide to emerge and rescue them. However, the plan is foiled when more ISIS soldiers arrive, which prevents them from rescuing the family. The squad are all forced to watch them die, and they emerge, walking past all the dead bodies. However, they are unable to do anything because the operative tells them that they were never there. So, So as they go outside, the family's mother rushes out with a bomb that explodes, killing her and Butchie. And then back in the real world, the doctor explains how Butchie woke up early on and quickly died, as I mentioned, after he had started being like, this isn't real, etc. Chris says that their own brains sent messages to them explaining what was going on isn't real, and the doctors all fail to understand why they were saying Vetrulek, which is a Muslim curse. Chris persuades them into putting him back into the simulation in order to make things right with the Hellwigs and atone for his sins. However, the machine says it will delete his memories of him waking up, which he doesn't hear. And of course, he wakes back up in the woods with the figure in front of him again, restarting the loop and ending the movie. Yeah, that wasn't going to be as long. So, that was Ghosts of War. As mentioned earlier, I'm Oh, hang on, I need to do you first. You need to give your thoughts, even though you were colouring for half of the film.
No, you were saying as you were mentioning it.
No. You go first. We need to hear your thoughts first, and then I'll go on. I want to hear your thoughts of the 2 minutes of the film you watched total.
What's 2 minutes? It was more.
You glanced every now and then. That doesn't. So it probably adds up to a few minutes.
Yeah, but I know what's happening.
Yeah, because I just read it out. Go on then. Give me your thoughts on the film.
You didn't. I was
Give me your thoughts on the fucking film.
It was
It was alright. Is that it? Any complaints?
more the practical effects.
Would you get it on DVD?
No.
No. Okay. So now that we've heard Amelia's in-depth breakdown of what she thought of the film, other than it was alright, wouldn't get it on DVD. As I mentioned earlier, this film had a very strong start with all of the World War II horror. As I mentioned, it would have been fine if not for the simulation bit. I wouldn't have even cared if they were in the real world being treated for PTSD. And I'd even like the whole, like, oh, we're trapped in hell. No. Instead, we were stuck with some stupid forced-in sci-fi bullshit, which kind of ruined that last bit for me. So, there's not much to say, as we sort of did our in-depth sort of thoughts about it at the start, and Amelia gave hers at the end just then. Best kill can go to Mr. Helvig in the real world. You were going to say one of the soldiers that got blown up, but of course they survived. Just because he was all burnt up and crispy, it was disgusting. The worst kill can go to literally any Nazi that was just shot dead. I mean, I love the only good Nazi's a dead Nazi, etc. However, of course, you know, bullets are just quick and easy. So those were our thoughts and our little review of the film. I definitely enjoyed it, probably more than you, even with that stupid ending. But at least it was kind of real, as opposed to a classic horror story where it's just a movie. I don't know. But anyway, thank you for listening. As always, I've been your host, Purple Midnight 8, joined by Amelia, Obsidian Nook, Petal ASMR. You can find her link in the description alongside all of mine. She's once again getting into her colours, so I apologise. We're going to be doing a bonus episode again this week because of last week's Amelia's choice. Last week was, but there will be a bonus one this week and next week. I think that's what we agreed on. It's not going to be the sequel to Scooby Doo. That will be next week. But this week we have something else lined up for you. So yeah. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in a couple of days.